this is our fifth one, and welcome no matter where you are in any part of the world. And the idea that we have this roundtable is really just looking at how emerging technology is going to shape the jobs of the future. And as we can see that technology is really constraining how we imagine our world will become and how we do our business, how we interact with each other. And when we talk about emerging technology, and we have already seen blockchain-based solutions transforming the central banking, and we see the AI based solution transforming almost everything. And of course, that's many of the activities now happening in the metaverse, and where that's the digital self is existing. We are coexist in multiverse. This is already becoming a reality. So with that, we have a very interesting panel, and then each one of you have an excellent background, have a lot to offer, and we have received many questions in the past. How can we exist? How can we just survive from all this emerging technology, and also from as a professional, how we can grow and continue to just be successful in the digital era. With that, I'd like to just have my panel to introduce your panelists to introduce yourself. And lady first from LC.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm LC. I'm a blockchain AI Web3 attorney with Industrial Blockchain Legal, or Industrial Business Lawyer, sorry.
Thank you. And Tracy?
I'm Anastasia Tracy Rices. I'm the founder and CEO of Aquilia Group, a consulting firm. I'm also a founder of Asymptos, which is an AI on the edge company focused on mobility. And I'm also an advisor for various organizations such as FinTech for Good and AI 2030.
Thank you. Avis?
Yes, good morning. My name is Awais Sheikh. I am a management consultant focusing on strategy. And I've done a lot of work in the public sector, so focused on the intersection of technology and federal government, as well as nonprofit and healthcare. I'm also the founder and principal consultant of my own consultancy, Introspect Consulting, where we look at the intersection of technology and education, healthcare, and nonprofits.
Thank you. Last but not least, Tal.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tal Cohen. I'm the CEO of Kraken USA, which is the U.S. business of Kraken, the second largest crypto exchange. I'm a lawyer by training, and also a former management consultant. I have my own consulting firm called Cohen Consulting, dealing with mainly technology, digital transformation, and business aspects.
Perfect. Yeah. And as you can see that, each one of you really just coming from a very different background and from, with a very different emerging technology focus. From the question side, I like to start from Tal. And, we know that Kraken is a very important digital asset exchange, and where that's, from the traditional asset management and then traditional exchange, where that's you have tons of instruments to just enable investors to leverage the assets and make fortune. But digital asset is a very different class, and what digital assets bring to the wealth management, to the asset management space, and how blockchain is transforming the wealth management.
Great question. So I think that the key thing that blockchain adds to the financial sector is another asset another asset class. It's an asset class that is not extremely correlated to other asset classes, even though it has been in the past year, most of it. But it's a non-correlated asset class with unique characteristics If you look at Bitcoin, for example, it's a hard currency, meaning that unlike a soft currency like the US dollar or any other government-backed currency, which a government can print endlessly, in Bitcoin that cannot happen. So that means that's the definition of a hard currency. And these assets tend to be anti-inflationary because they can't be printed endlessly. And on the back of Bitcoin and Ethereum, there are additional asset classes that, asset types or blockchains that allow different functionality. All these are enabling both a technology and an asset class for investors and for developers that are looking to either diversify or to build on top of what they already have.
Awesome. And now, go to Avis, where that, you have worked with, the largest tech company and serve, in the leadership position and serve, work with customers, from different sectors. And what kind of emerging technologies enable the innovation that you have seen, and what kind of new business models emerging technology have been have brought to the market?
Yeah, thanks, Xioachen. You're right. I mean, whether it's working with Amazon Web Services and our customers there, whether it's looking at federal government in the U.S. through MITRE. I think whenever we talk about strategy, we always talk about technology in the context of the broader trends in the marketplace. And really, when we talk about some of those sectors that you mentioned, we're kind of in a very, I'll call it a crucible moment in terms of how we're working overall. And people talk about it in context of return to office or in context of, COVID, but I think it was happening a lot before that. And so we talk about, I think ADP Research Institute, they interviewed 19,000 workers worldwide, and they talk about, 16% on average are engaged at work, and the lack of engagement costs around $7 trillion of productivity. And business units that have engagement are 17% more productive and 21% more profitable than those that aren't. And so I think when we think about the role of technology and how we perform work across all of these sectors, it has opportunities to significantly increase that engagement. We're talking about some corporations and even public sector agencies using gamification as a way of increasing engagement. You talked a little bit about the metaverse, the use of immersive technology, AR, VR, in a training context, as well as to provide that hybrid between allowing flexibility for people to work where they need to work, but also providing some of the benefits that we get from collaborative experiences. We talk about, obviously, AI and the automation of undifferentiated tasks, but there's also a flip side to all of these as well. Each of these also has some stories where it may not go so well. And so I think even more important than whatever technology we're choosing, whether it's blockchain or AI, all of these have an opportunity. It's really about enterprises and agencies thinking about how to implement those technologies in a way that helps engage employees and places them at the center of the process. Because if technology is done to them as opposed to with them, then we see examples of it actually being a dual-edged sword and working the opposite way. And maybe in some of the question answers can offer a few examples that we've seen. But I think that's what I would start with, Chen, is thinking about all of these technologies really in the broader context of the jobs to be done that we're seeing across these various different sectors.
Thank you. And now let's move to Tracy. And again, that's a similar question that if you want to pick one technology, or if one, want to focus a more broader emerging technology and see how, that technology is, transforming the business that you're focusing on. Yeah.
Pick which technology. That's kind of hard because we're in an interesting space right now where you've got Web 3.0 being at the forefront, and there's a lot of discussion about that. There's also discussion about what we do with AI, but there's another trend, and that's Industry 5.0. And this is the convergence of the human-machine collaboration. So all of these three trends are kind of coming together. They're converging in a way where they actually reinforce each other. And a really good place to see that is in the transportation industry. And you're seeing that in experimentation at universities and scientific centers of research, such as the Korean Institute of Technology, where they're experimenting with a humanoid robot called PyBot that can fly aircraft. So you're having the convergence right there of the machine human collaboration. Artificial intelligence is the brain of the robot. And of course, Web 3.0 with the decentralized architecture and information, that all comes to connect everything together. So it's a very interesting space to be in right now. On top of that, because this is emerging so quickly, you have the concept of responsible innovation and responsible AI, which is very important because regulations don't move as quickly as innovation and technology does. So you need a framework in order to guide principles on how you're going to innovate and do this the right way.
Thank you. And now that's let's go to LC. And it's very clear when we just have emerging technology, it's always interesting that it brings new challenge to the system, and that could be just the rights which are yet to be defined, and which can be also the rights which being invaded or breached, and there will be lawyers and legal system play a very important role in this. And you as a lawyer or legal professional focusing on blockchain, and what have you seen?
Yeah, so I think we're seeing the waters get tested. Tech moves way, way quicker than government, but government is inevitable. So tech has to keep that in mind because it gets there eventually and decides pretty swiftly and harshly whether or not people like it, and no matter how far they've gone with it. So I think putting forth thoughtful development, being reasonable, understanding that as you develop in tech and as these techs emerge, you have to set like reasonable industry standards. You're essentially, as you're innovating, you're creating the best practices, because while government is inevitable and will always get those bad actors, what the people in the middle are kind of mitigating for is like setting the standard for what's acceptable, because this machine is going, right? Like these techs are being developed, especially, I mean, blockchain's a great example. All the crypto companies that are out there, you're seeing the really outlandish cases go down. But what's happening in the middle is we're negotiating how far we're going to go with Howie, how far we're going to take this with what is and isn't a security, how far we're going to allow the decentralization arguments to go for utility and those kinds of things. So government can't come in and undo it all. So industry has to be thoughtful as it develops, as it grows, as it builds, to create an industry that has its own reasonable standards, best practices for what you're doing. And then, the rest is just a negotiation as the tech grows with the government.
Awesome. And so, from the first question, I think it's very clear that from emerging technology, we have a very broad coverage here, and where that's from the Web3 AI, and Tracy also bring the industry for 5.0, and where that's the sector that you can see, and where that's from the wealth management, from the government, from legal, from the enterprise, and there are a lot of very interesting happening there. And then of course that's this some of you already just talked about the benefits, where that no matter you using metaverse to do immersive training, and then which can reducing costs, and from the blockchain introducing new asset class to just add liquidity for investors. So there are a lot of benefits. My second question is really follow on what you have shared just now, and can you just give us one specific example and how one emerging technology is transforming one business model and bringing one type of or multiple benefits and what is the most exciting emerging technology based use case that you have seen? And this time probably let's start from Avis.
Yeah, thanks, Xioachen. Look, I think to Tracy's point, there's so many different things, and it's hard to talk about these technologies in isolation. But I am pretty encouraged about some of the interesting applications of augmented reality, virtual reality, in context of some of these enterprises. And I have maybe two stories around that. Maybe one's a positive story, and one is more of a cautionary tale. The positive story is Walmart. Walmart. Their head of learning and development actually learned from the NFL and football and noticed how quarterbacks are using virtual reality to prepare for situations. And so why couldn't we have our employees simulate what the Black Friday rush is going to look like? And so they rolled out across 200 of their academies an immersive learning experience to actually have their employees go through different scenarios using augmented reality. They reported 30% higher employee satisfaction, and they scored on testing. Those employees that went through the immersive experience scored 70% higher than those that just went kind of through the traditional training process, and 10 to 15% more knowledge retention. So not only did they learn more the first time, but they retained that knowledge over time, which, look, those numbers, especially in a retail context, when you put everything at scale, are huge, especially for something like Walmart. So that's a positive example. Now, in the same technology field, augmented reality, and kind of the government field, you also have a cautionary tale, right? So you have the Army that tried to implement augmented reality, working with one of the companies, and spent nearly $500 million with the plan to spend $21 billion more on an immersive reality headset for training. But they found that after 1,000 soldiers and 100,000 hours of testing, 80% of the soldiers were, reporting discomfort, and they were having, failures. And now they're having a tough time actually being able to get the funding that they need to continue that program forward. And so the difference between those, again, I think, is really about how do we make sure that when we're implementing these, we're putting the user experience at the center of that process to make sure that we're leveraging that technology to help engage, our workforce to be able to deliver to needs of our customers and constituents in new and effective ways.
Thank you. And balance the story there. Now let's move to Tracy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of edge compute, IoT, and the virtual reality. That combination is a very powerful combination. And of course, underpinning it is the cloud. But the three right off the bat, there's a lot of really good use cases. Aside from the training that Awais talked about, which I think is a really useful use case for the aviation industry as an example, you have agritech as an example. You have the IoT devices that are on the farm, and then you can walk the farm without literally walking the farm in the metaverse. And then, of course, you have the edge compute devices closer to the farm in order to make faster decisions, because regardless of how fast your connection is, there is a latency when it comes to your connection to the cloud and getting feedback from the cloud. The edge devices kind of stand in the middle and make the decision making closer to where you are, and that's critically important in mobility. As another example, PiBot, I talked about that before. If you have PiBot taking over the aircraft because there's some kind of emergency and the pilot that's actually in command cannot, for whatever reason, pilot the aircraft, and PiBot is taking over, there has to be instantaneous decision making being made in the aircraft. So having that combination is critically important, and that actually fascinates me.
Thank you. And Tao?
Sure, yeah. So I'm the blockchain guy, and naturally I'll give blockchain examples. So I think blockchain as a technology, has amazing promise. The most common use case is in the form of value or assets, because blockchain technology allowed you to have a reliable a reliable source of a reliable asset that is extremely hard to forge. So when you have a Bitcoin, you have that Bitcoin, and unlike other forms of money where forgery was easier, let's say if it's a dollar bill that you can take the most advanced 3D printing, color photocopier and create a lookalike. In blockchain technology, that's impossible. Through that, it has allowed other use cases such as supply chain management. So if you want to say, or if you want to prove that something is an asset or has been manufactured in some place and is an original, blockchain technology can assist with that. Other use cases have to do with transfer of value. So money remittances, basically the transfer of money 24/7 around the world at minimal costs, which is something that is extremely hard to do with in the banking system. So there's a lot of use cases that have come up. The challenge is that there is not a use case that has been mass adopted by the public. So blockchain technology has a lot of promise, decentralized databases and ledgers and high level of trust with zero knowledge. A lot of things that have a lot of promise, but we're still waiting for that killer app to reach 1 billion people so that they'd be using blockchain technology unknowingly quite often on their phones or on their other devices. We're still waiting for that, but as the years go by, this is a relatively new technology. It's 15 years. As the years go by, this is I'm confident that this will arrive.
Thank you. And then Elsie?
Yeah, so similar to Tal, I'm blockchain oriented first. So I would say what I'm seeing mostly that excites me is the concept of a digital identity that has, trust. And it seems like we're entering this world where every website you go to, every time you're on the internet, you need to sign into something. And in doing so, you're creating and giving data. But enter the idea of a digital identity using a wallet and zero knowledge proofs, I don't have to give as much data as I normally would if I'm just using a one-click sign-on with like Facebook or Google. If I'm using this digital identity, I can kind of control what information I need to share. And even if it's a website that doesn't permit, someone under 18 or someone under 21 from being on that website, or someone from another state or another country, the ability to use this digital identity and use zero knowledge proof allows me to prove what I need to prove to use that website or engage without providing any extra data or any extra information that I don't feel comfortable sharing. So I think the promise of blockchain is the promise of controlling your data, which is something we've kind of really lost control of. And people are just now starting to kick back on and say, hey, why is this phone listening to everything I say? Why are these ads super directed towards me? This is getting out of control. I think we can do some pushback on that if we really start to adopt and use this new digital identity in a way that really protects its users. But like Tal said, it's a matter of mass adoption. So I'm just waiting for that one company to give a digital identity with a user and an interface that allows people to seamlessly and trustfully use it.
Thank you. And I think several of you just touched a very similar thing. What are the driving forces for technology adoption, and that really everything go back to the users, go back to the customers, right? And where that's from, it's very clear that if the for example Walmart employee are not looking for a more immersive experience, and then probably that's a test, or that's a pilot may not be successful. And again, if customers don't want to just owning their own data, probably that's the blockchain-based solution may not just give that the promise, and the pilots are not looking for some more immersive and also that's on-spot support from the co-pilot, and then that's a solution that's Tracy shared may not just awesome. So again, that's many times we have seen that it's really the customers who are driving the innovation. It's the individuals or the users who are driving the innovation. Go back to Tao's point. Where is that blockchain killer app? And what is really the challenge that killer app is not emerging? And go back to the user experience, right? And whoever are digital assets trader or just a crypto owner, and then just to that user experience is still not there. You have to just click take multiple steps, and then you have to remember that the 12 or 16 words, and if you just lose your passcode, and then you may lose your assets. So all those are really the user experience piece, and the user is not convinced that I'm only those who are more as early adopters, who are more tech savvy, and who really know how to navigate and then feel comfortable to adopt that. So I think go back to the killer application, and that's also take a look at the AI side. AI has been in as an emerging technology, and which is transforming many business models for 50 years. But the only why AI now just received so much attention, that's really because of one killer app, that is ChatGPT. And no matter you are enterprise or you are a individual, and then it's very easy for you to just log in and then write a few prompts, and then you are able to get the result that you're looking for. And so I think blockchain side, probably we are also looking for something which can just really is that simple and also is that powerful. And my next question is really around the adoption side, and for any new business model and new technology which are being introduced to an enterprise or to a customer or user, where that's you are really changing behaviors, and that is the most difficult thing to do, and where that's you ask people to do things differently. No matter it's as a professional, you probably you have your background, your expertise, and then you receive the training, and it's so easy for you to do the things in the same way. And if you're an individual, that's you have your habits, you have your preference, and one new solution potentially really just ask you to do it differently. I think that is a very difficult ask, and no matter at the enterprise level or at the individual level. And for my next question is basically for you, what are the key barriers for the technology adoption, and especially at the enterprise, and what are the driving force, and have you seen any good examples and to just enable that adoption or address the barriers, to fill the gaps? And maybe this time that's a start from Tracy.
Well, when it comes to AI, there's a lot of barriers for adoption. First of all, you have on the educational side, you have a lot of schools that are banning the use of AI. They're actually checking to see if students have plagiarized using AI, and I believe there was one case where they actually failed practically an entire classroom of students, and it came out that they were falsely accused, that the teacher used ChatGPT and input the essays and asked if this was written by ChatGPT, and ChatGPT said yes, and it was a hallucination. It wasn't real. So there's a few barriers like that we need to overcome. Another barrier is having an ethical framework, and that's one of the things that AI 2030 is working on, to create a framework that provides practical and actionable guidance. And there's a lot of frameworks out there right now besides the AI 2030, but I think the AI 2030 framework is tying a lot of best practices together from the other frameworks. And some of the other frameworks include the Montreal Declaration, the Beijing AI principles. There's also universal guidelines, but the AI 2030 is tying things together pretty well. You also have regulatory barriers. Right now, the regulatory landscape doesn't really cover artificial intelligence. It's got a good basis. It's got GDPR, which we all know about. We have the California Consumer Protection Act. You have the Child Online Privacy and Protection Act, you have HIPAA. These cover privacy, and you have also some sprinkling of data security in there as well, but nothing really directly covers the emerging technologies that we have for today. So there's a few things in play, but I'm sure we'll get past all of these at the pace of the innovation.
Thank you. Elsie?
Yeah, so I think another problem is we are in an emerging tech field, so it's hard to keep a pulse on the reality of where tech actually is. And I say that in the context of, the lowest, it's like you can only go so far if not everyone is caught up. So there are still like government agencies that are operating those big box computers, I'm sure, with a black screen and green font. And you have to find a way to get them to join up, or else there's too much of a gap. So I think some of the problem with this emerging tech is that some people still aren't at Web 2.0. And we need to get them there so that we can also bring them along to Web 3.0 and beyond. So keeping that in mind, it's so hard when you're in a tech industry and when you're talking to all these incredibly talented, intelligent people about these exciting new techs and how things are growing. And I can't fathom not using ChatGPT every day now, or I can't fathom not engaging with whatever it is. Well, you should, because that's the world we live in. And you've got to bring those people that don't engage with that. You've got to get them at the table too, because that's how true innovation happens. It's got to bring everybody to the table, and that's part of the problem.
And Tal?
Yeah, so I agree with everything that was said before. I'd like to add some more challenges. So when we talk about AI, it is seen, ChatGPT only came out to the public a year ago, which is unheard of, right? It reached 100 million users in a record time, broke all the records before that, with super cool use cases like DALL-E to create images, and basically ChatGPT to help you in anything from writing letters to doing research, etc. So these are great tools, but they're very early stage. As Tracy said, hallucination is one of the problems of these tools. Ask them how much is 2 + 2, and you might not get the answer 4. So they're very limited to actually what we see as a very difficult problem, thought or empathy or text creation, but they're not suitable at this point to a lot of other use cases like mathematics and sciences. So the usability is amazing, but it's limited to specific use cases. Another thing you asked about, how does this, what is stopping it from adoption in the corporate world? Privacy is a big thing for corporations. There's tools like Firefly that would allow you to summarize this chat that we're having and create a transcript and make recommendations and follow-ups. But that is not a tool that a lot of corporations would want to have, because you're giving out control over your information. The other thing is, a lot of companies have their own data proprietary internally, and they don't want to open it up to an external tool. There is a vast amount of value in that data, but unless you can actually harness it to work only within your company, that would be a problem. And a lot of companies are very aware, very cautious of letting their coders build code with ChatGPT and Copilot and others. Again, for similar concerns of safety, authenticity, and things that corporations are concerned about. So we do have a way to go. There's ethics, there's usability, there's safety, there's use cases, but that technology is extremely promising, and it's going to change everything that we do.
Thank you. And Avis?
Yeah, I mean, I think my colleagues hit on a lot of great points, and I'll just try to, footstop maybe a couple of them and add a few. For those that have seen, one of my favorite movies is the movie The Big Short, where one of the things that they try to do is to take complex financial topics and kind of make it easier for people to understand. And so I say that because I think terminology, honestly, is one of the big barriers. I mean, we use some of these terms when they're not really well understood, and we don't really appreciate the nuance and the spectrum that these terms cover. So artificial intelligence, for example, covers everything like generative artificial intelligence that we've been talking about. But to LC's point, I resemble that remark of seeing plenty of government agencies where they're really at the robotic process automation end of the spectrum of artificial intelligence. And so when you talk about artificial intelligence across that spectrum, you might be having a conversation where someone in their head has something that's more predictive or generative in mind, where we're really just talking about automation of rote tasks as being the problem we're trying to solve. My blockchain colleagues here, I feel like for a lot of the folks in the government, you talk to them about blockchain and it's synonymous with crypto. And they're like, well, we don't want to have anything to do with that, as opposed to really thinking about smart contracts and identity and some of those types of other use cases for the underlying technology. So I would say terminology, frankly, and just getting a better understanding is a barrier. I think a theme of a lot of my comments are about technology being used to solve a problem and thinking through the workflow. Tracy, I love your example of the education one. I think a lot of folks in education are thinking, how do we build the walls higher? But I actually heard on NPR, there was a great example of an English literature professor of all people, where the way that they actually adjusted their curriculum to accommodate for ChatGPT is he said, hey, students, I want you to read this novel. And then I want you to come to me with a prompt. What prompt? And I want that prompt to actually be, what's the essay? Like, write me an essay about this topic, and I'll work with you on the prompt. And then we'll actually run it through GPT or BART or any of these other tools. And then your assignment is to actually critique the essay that's coming back, which I thought was just a brilliant way of actually thinking through how to incorporate the technology into the workflow, as opposed to, again, technology not being done to people, but with people. And then the final point, Tracy, I think regulation, when we talk about scaling adoption of technology, we have to talk about regulation, because that is going to be something which is either an actual barrier or a perceived barrier. A few years ago when I was at MITRE, one of the things that the Office of Management and Budget in the US government had done was put together the concept of a gear center, which was kind of a public-private partnership to take challenges in the government and engage with commercial industry to show the art of the possible, so that those that are making regulation and policy and legislation even could think through what was even possible with addressing this challenge, so that they could be informed and have a more agile approach to rulemaking, as opposed to those long cycles of technology coming out and then regulation and then the law. I mean, those are not quick processes. And so, I think terminology, making sure that we're actually solving problems and thinking through impact on workflow, and working with public-private partnerships for regulation are a few things that we can do to help scale adoption.
I love your education example, and I'm going to start using that.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you have any question from the audience, feel free to type them, and when I see them, and I can just invite you to the stage. And yeah, it's very clear that when we talk about the technology adoption, we're not only talking about technology. And of course, technology has its own problem. And then, several of you mentioned if technology is at its early stage, and then, there be a lot of problem related to the early stage technology, and then, the capacity, and also, many of the inherited problem within the technology because they are early stage, and that itself is a problem. And then, with more innovator jumping into that, with more brilliant mind jumping into that, and that the technology is just improving at a speed which is beyond the human imagination. And if you compare the internet 30 years ago to now, or the cloud computing from beginning till now, and then you're not talking about, although under the same concept, but technology itself is like a totally different one. And then of course technology, we are always talking about people process technology. And when you talk about the technology adoption, you have to look into what process that you are trying to disrupt, right? And then several of you mentioned the regulations, and some of you mentioned the privacy, and a lot of time that there are existing processes and how things are supposed to be done, and defined by the regulators, defined by the corporate leadership. And now that you are introducing new solution, new way of doing things, and naturally you ask people to adopt a new process, and then a lot of time that is beyond the technology itself, that is looking into the process, looking to the adaptive leadership and how to just make the process working, and to just remove those kind of barrier. The third piece from the adoption is around the people side, right? And some of you mentioned about awareness. If the awareness is not there, the understanding is not there, they don't have the knowledge, and naturally there's a lot of misunderstanding, and that will prevent from adoption. But the other piece is around the talent, right? And if you introduce an emerging technology, naturally you need to have the professionals who are able to do that, keep in the way which meet the industry standards. And when compare, we take blockchain as example, and in 2011 or 12, and when I started working on Bitcoin, and I was trying to look for who understands it. So if I want to use Bitcoin to do rural solar trading, and who can advise me? That's basically, you have to just do your own research. You don't find professionals. And then by when Ethereum was launched in 2015, how many people really know how to code on Ethereum? But now that when you just look at the whole digital asset space, and we have abundance of experts, blockchain, from the coder to the business to the go-to-market, and then this space changed a lot. And a similar thing, to AI, and where that's many folks in the past was like a risk manager, now becoming the AI risk manager, and they are data scientists becoming AI data scientists. But that all take time. And my next question is really around the talent, because we are talking about jobs of future. And in your view, that emerging technology are really introducing new excitement and also introducing new problems. And how do professionals prepare themselves? What challenge they may face, and what are the ways that they can get themselves to be ahead of time? So this time maybe start from Elsie.
Yeah, I think I'm going to answer this with the blockchain, perspective. There's so many, I think the Web3 space as a whole really rewards those who are enthusiastic and curious, even if they don't have the talent just yet. And I say that too in the sense of, if you're willing to show up and offer what you can currently offer, people in this space will help you learn what you need to learn as you contribute, because that's kind of the whole concept of a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. You can join these communities and help, contribute, learn along the way. And by the end of that time in that community, or whatever it is that community was building, you've contributed, you've learned, and now you might have a whole new skill set that then you can leverage in another DAO or with another project. And that's really the ethos of that Web3 space, is it's hands-on learning. I mean, my journey into Web3 and blockchain was curiosity driven, showing up to events, asking questions, meeting people, and then bringing my talents to the table as a lawyer. I'm in a room full of devs, and I'm like, oh, I can't talk to you about, this programming language. They were like, well, what do you do? And I say, I'm an attorney. And they're like, great, you can read and write. Can you edit our white paper? Can you do these things, leverage your tools in my space? And so then you start reading through a bunch of white papers for grammar, syntax, and ensuring it makes sense. And all of a sudden now that's my knowledge base, because now I've read through this tech. I start to pick it up. I'm asking deeper questions, learning on a new level. And all that took was just me showing up and participating. And that's really what's the most rewarding and encouraging part of Web3. It's not a tech that you're going to get left behind in if you're willing to be curious.
Yeah, and when you were talking, I see Tao, definitely anyone who are in the blockchain space probably will just fully agree with what you said. And Tao.
Yeah, I fully agree with Elsie. So people who are excited about a new technology, whatever that technology is, right? Be it blockchain, be it AI, be it anything else, solar, or renewable energy, are excited to see excited people around them, and enthusiastic people around them. People who believe in the same cause. We all wake up in the morning. We all go to a certain work that consumes a lot of our time, and if we're passionate about it, then just showing up, being passionate about it, you pick up a lot of stuff. Usually in these new technologies, so I can definitely speak to blockchain, there's not a lot of people with experience and people with knowledge. If you turn around now and look for, developers in Rust and other programming languages, you'll probably find more. But if you're looking for people who have business experience, people who have regulatory experience, they're fewer and far between. And I think there's always a demand for people who are energetic, bright, working in those areas. Some technologies lend more to more professions. So if you look at areas like AI, there is less of a consumer business entity that would employ professions like customer support or marketing, etc. It's more centered around the hardware, so the chipsets and the major solutions and the ecosystem that is building around them. I think it's a very nascent industry. If you look at blockchain, it's about a decade older. Again, it really isn't, because AI started in the middle of the last century, but the real jump in AI was last year, and blockchain has been gradually growing for the last 10 years. So there's more professions. Like Elsie said, there's marketing and content and white papers and acquisition and users and customer support. So when you look at a company like Kraken, we have customer support, we have banking, we have finance, we have marketing, we have a lot of aspects, of course, development, product, a lot of aspects of that. And there's more and more companies that are and offer a wide range of skill sets that are being looked at. So I think if you're interested in that area, start reading, reaching out to people, reaching out to us, and say, hey, I'm interested in the industry. This is what I know. This is what I can bring. Can this be of use to you or to anyone you know?
Thank you. And Tracy.
So there's a lot of resources out there. in order to do training. But the very, very first thing that you need to do is overcome your fear. There's a lot of fear of people fearing that their jobs are going to be displaced, and rightfully so. I mean, it happens. AI is not the first technology to displace workers. There used to be years ago a thing called a switchboard operator. Now, who's a switchboard operator? Nobody. We all have cell phones. There used to be an elevator operator. Now you press a button in the elevator bank, and you don't even have to press the floor of the button with the floor number when you get in the elevator. It's programmed to take you to the floor that you asked for initially. So there will be some displacement, but overcoming that fear and looking at AI as something that augments, and going to Ovais's comment before about terminology, words matter. I've heard people start using the word augmented instead of artificial when it comes to AI. So they're calling it augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence to enable people to overcome that fear and to show them that AI is a tool for them to use in their job. And so once they start getting past that fear and look at it with a different viewpoint, that attitude that it's there to help them and enable them, I think that will help them seek more information on how to do their job better, how to make job satisfaction better, more efficient. And the courses are out there. There's plenty of them.
Thank you. Always.
Yeah, I guess first of all, I remember switchboard operators and elevator operators, so I guess that says something about me too. Look, I think a lot of folks have said it. I mean, I'll offer one macro and one micro. I think from a macro perspective, what's old is still relevant sometimes, and I think Everett Rogers' kind of model of diffusion still holds. I mean, you still are going to have the early adopters like Elsie is talking about, and they're going to generate the excitement, and it's not going to take a lot to get them adopted. And then you're going to have the early and late majority. And I think for those that are designing technologies and putting out technologies, you have to design for those, early and late majorities. And so I think that's something that is important to consider and think about. At the micro level, there's something else, that you said that I just really resonated about being the lawyer in the room with the devs. And I think there's a concept, back in the 2000s around X teams, having cross-functional teams. And I think we need to think about our team pairings and even our organizational structures to say, how do we bring, the domain experts, the technology experts, and also the, quote unquote support functions together as part of these X teams to really think about how to adopt technology within the context of a particular company, but then also for that company to think about technology in the context of its customers. So, I think rethinking, our teaming and our org structures to be able to facilitate that adoption and accelerate it is something we should all be thinking about as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think, again, a lot of the points you shared are really heavily connect with each other, and to address fear. And I think go back to Tao's point where that's, think about no matter what technology, there will be, core functions that if you have that expertise, and then, no matter it's, customer success or it's the marketing, and a tool is a tool, right? And where that's, but your background from the past will still matter. But whether it matter or not, that go back to, Elsie's point that you need to grow, and where that's that curiosity need to drive you, no matter it's for the sake of fear or for the sake of, just the curiosity, and you need to grow. That grow and meaning that, you need to seek help us, by yourself, or just learn by yourself, or, join events, or reading, learn from others. And then I think a lot of preparation work need to be done. And the third piece is that, go back to the, technology adoption curve, and then the enterprise or corporates also have a very important role to play, and for workforce development, for product design. And naturally that's, I think that side there are a lot of space for potential collaboration. And last question, we still have 4 minutes, so just quickly, and each one of you, what is your core, take home message for the audience, and from this conversation, and maybe this time start from as a beginning, and I think now start from Tao.
Yeah, so I think find your passion, find what interests you, and go with it. Nobody will be able to stop you. If all these technology sectors go through winters and summers, AI did very long periods, so did blockchain. But if you believe in it, continue building your expertise, your knowledge, your value, and you'll find a way to get in. That's it.
Thank you. And then Avis?
Yeah, I mean, I like that one. I'll keep mine simple. I would say design technology with customers and users, not for them. I think the more that we can involve them in the process and help break down some of those barriers, those myths, those hallucinations, I think we called them earlier. I think that happens through early and often engagement.
Tracy?
Well, 2 messages, one for the developers and one for the users. So for the developers, responsible innovation, focus on doing this responsibly. And for the consumers, the users, be fearless. This is a great time.
And Elsie?
Everything they said was right on point. I really think follow your curiosity, because if you are frustrated learning something, don't force it. Just follow your natural path of curiosity and you'll find your place in that tech.
Awesome. Yeah, this is a very interesting conversation. Just bring back a lot of interesting memory. I remember, last time when I was in New York and met some of the interns that worked for me, many years ago, and then they are now the blockchain leaders, and then they came to me and say that's we started our journeys, from being an intern. I participated in one of the events in 2016 or 2017, and then this is my whole career. So a lot of time that people were thinking about, I need a pass, I need to plan everything. But a lot of times it's really that curiosity, drive you to one event, one connection, one book, and then that open up a new world. And having that curiosity and openness to really, go from there and then to just make something happen. And that I think will, make you becoming part of the change, not to just be left behind. And that is also really, the goal of this conversation. And we want to, everyone just, company design with the customer, and we as the individual just ride together with the technology will change, not just being left behind. And our next conversation will be on December 19th, and that will be very close to the Christmas. But we have also a very great lineup, speakers lineup, and hopefully you will be able to join us. And thank you again for my speakers, and you have provided tons of insights and great examples, stories, and I learned a lot. And hopefully that's everyone who listened to this, no matter now in the room or just listen to the recording, and be able to learn and enjoy this conversation. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.